Hey, hello, hello. Welcome as the first of you start rolling in. Hope you're feeling warm on this Wednesday afternoon, 1 o'clock. And okay, there we go. The internets are connecting. Awesome. So we're gonna roll right into it. Welcome to today's nutrition showcase. My name is Gloria. I'm the virtual program coordinator here at Gilda Toronto, and I'm gonna be a little bit behind the scenes over here as Chef Amy is taking us through the next hour. Today's topic: physical activity and protein recommendations for cancer nutrition. Before we get rolling into why you're really here, I just have to go over a little bit of housekeeping with y'all. So this is a webinar. There are two buttons that I really need you to know about. At the bottom of your Zoom screen, it's got two cute little chat bubbles. It says Q&A. At any point throughout this presentation, if you have any questions or comments that you would like to direct to Chef Amy, please pop them in the Q&A. There will be time throughout the presentation where we'll be answering those questions, and then dedicated time as well at the end. But feel free to throw those questions in at any time throughout. We will get to them. For technical support, you can reach me at the chat box, which is just a little bit to the right. It's got one chat bubble. If you don't see either of those two buttons, you might have to press the three dots at the bottom. It says more, and then those two options will come up for you. Like I said, this is a webinar. We cannot see you, we cannot hear you, so it is really important that you use these two buttons to communicate with us throughout this next hour. This is being recorded, so you will be receiving the recording as well as handouts from Amy that have the recipes and the nutrition facts and all the information that you're hearing today. So no need to be crazy writing notes or feverishly cooking alongside. If you're not feeling it right now, you can do that at your own pace afterwards. And at any point before, during, after, even if you're not a member, if you would like to get in contact with us, please send us an email at program@gildasclubtoronto.org. This is a little blurb here that I will throw into the chat box as well, pretty much to say that all the information that is provided in this presentation is for general educational and informational purposes only. If you need to make some changes to your diet or you want to take some inspiration from this, we do heavily encourage you to go talk to your doctor or your nutritionist, dietitian, whoever you're working with, to make sure that they're a part of any plans that you're making. Like I said, you can read the whole thing in the chat box, but now we've got Chef Amy. So I'm going to do a bit of reading. Amy Symington is a nutrition professor, researcher, and nutrition-focused chef at George Brown College in Toronto, Canada. She is currently completing her PhD in nutritional sciences at the University of Toronto. She runs the culinary nutrition programming at Gilda Toronto, including the nutrition showcase you're watching today, webinars, and when we are in person, the supper club programming. Amy also works with the UHN and the Canadian Liver Foundation, providing culinary nutrition demonstrations for patients. She volunteers with the Toronto Veg Food Bank as a chef and nutrition consultant and does recipe development and food writing for various publications in Toronto. Amy believes in the evidence-based health and environmental benefits of whole plant-based diets and is the recent author of the Long Table Cookbook 2.0, the companion book that you can find on our website for free, which I will be linking into the chat box as well afterwards. So without further ado, stop my share. Amy, here you go.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Gloria. You're the best. That was a great little introduction. And thank you for tuning in and joining us today on this kind of cloudy, brisk fall day. Yeah, and just taking time out of your very busy schedules for yourselves and learning a little bit more about cancer nutrition. So as Gloria mentioned, we have a few resources. A couple of them are online and free. So if you go to our website, there is the Community Guide to Cancer Nutrition companion cookbook, as well as a Community Guide to Cancer Nutrition. So just giving a little bit of information about what to consume for prevention, during treatment, and then to prevent recurrence, and then some corresponding recipes that go with that. And then also we have our Long Table Cookbook. You can kind of see it in my background here. And that cookbook, when we created it, was based on cancer nutrition. So all the recipes were taking into consideration nutrition needs for those who have been touched by cancer. So check those out. All the proceeds from this guy go to support the social, emotional, and nutritional programming at Gilda's Club. So I always do not feel bad about promoting it because it does go to Gilda's, which is awesome. Okay, and so for today, we are going to be focusing on one particular cancer nutrition topic, and that is physical activity and protein recommendations for cancer nutrition. So you may or may not be aware, protein requirements tend to increase after a cancer diagnosis, particularly during treatment. And I'll talk a little bit about that and the types of good quality protein sources that you can consume and about how much you might need. But you may not know that physical activity is also recommended, obviously for cancer prevention, which you probably have heard before, but also to help during treatment, actually. And I'll get into a little bit more detail about that. Okay, so with that said, we'll do the fact component first, which is all the evidence-based nutrition, cancer nutrition knowledge, and then we're going to practically apply that into recipe format. So I've got three easy recipes that are packed with protein, and then also, again, practically applying all of the stuff that we're going to be talking about. Okay, so here we go. Buckle in. Facts first, then the fun. Okay, so overall, the expert panel on the World Cancer Research Fund, or the expert panel on the World Cancer Research Fund, believes that more physical activity. So first, I'll talk about physical activity for cancer prevention. Then I'll get into during treatment, and then we'll talk about protein requirements. Okay, so the expert panel on the World Cancer Research Fund believes that the more physical activity people are doing, the lower the risk of developing certain types of cancers. And I'm sure you've heard that before. There's strong evidence that being physically active decreases the risk of specifically colon, breast, and endometrial cancers. And then according to the physical activity guidelines for Americans in general and Canadians in general, we should be doing or engaging in at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity activity every single week. So moderate intensity would be like you can carry on a conversation while you're doing it, whereas intense or vigorous would be more like you're a bit winded, you wouldn't be able to carry on a conversation. And so the ideal amount of each is kind of just a combination of each spread throughout the week. So not just necessarily all at once. I mean, you can do that, but it's recommended that you're doing that throughout the week. And then if we're talking specifically about children and adolescents, the recommendation for cancer prevention is to engage in about a minimum of 1 hour of moderate or vigorous intensity in terms of activity, with a focus on the vigorous activity occurring at least 3 times per week for cancer and disease prevention. Okay. And then you may or may not realize, we've heard that sitting is not great. Being sedentary, stationary all the time is not great. So getting up and moving more is highly encouraged. And so in terms of the research, sedentary behaviors should be limited as much as possible, and lifestyle choices should be changed where possible to include more physical active behaviors in order to maintain a healthy weight and to reduce the risk, again, of those specific cancers I've mentioned before. Furthermore, research suggests that an increased level of physical activity may be associated with further reductions in cancer risk. So even more on top of the recommended amounts that I just discussed. So, increasing the amount, both the moderate and then also the vigorous, has been shown to be even more beneficial. However, with that said, optimal intensity, length, and frequency is not necessarily specifically known as of yet. However, what has been shown is that about 300 minutes of moderate intensity or 150 minutes of vigorous intensity on a weekly basis is associated or has been associated with further cancer prevention. And this can also be taken into consideration for cancer reoccurrence as well. Okay. Additionally, and I do like to say this too, because not everybody's that active, and everyone's starting point is different. So if for individuals who are inactive or have just started to engage in regular physical activity, levels below the recommended guidelines can be beneficial, and then just gradually increasing those towards the recommended amounts. So that's what's recommended. And then That's for prevention, and then also for reoccurrence as well. But specifically recommendations after a cancer diagnosis, quite similar. It's really just move your body, move your body more. Obviously taking into consideration your starting point. But regular exercise, including strength building and cardiovascular, are essential to help maintain lean body mass. And that's something that happens particularly during treatment, is the loss of that lean body mass. And we want to try to avoid that or maintain that or reduce it as much as possible. So as mentioned, scaropenia or muscle wasting is a common side effect of cancer and its treatment. And so exercise combined with a sufficient amount of protein is necessary for good health and to increase longevity. Okay, and then I always say, if you've ever done my if you've ever been to any of my nutrition showcases before, I always say that the best physical activity is the one that you will do. So think of something that brings you joy, makes you happy. It could be dancing, it could be Tai Chi, it could be yoga, it could be, you know, water aerobics, whatever, frisbee throwing, whatever it is that makes you happy, do that and do it often. Dancing to music, you know, again, just pick something that makes you smile and do it as much as you possibly can. Okay. And then exercise during cancer treatment. So an increasing number of studies have examined the therapeutic value of exercise during primary cancer treatment. And so existing evidence strongly suggests that exercise is not only safe and feasible during cancer treatment, but it can also improve physical functioning, fatigue, and multiple aspects of quality of life. Some studies have also suggested that physical activity may even increase the rate of completion of chemotherapy, which is obviously a perk. Current evidence, however, is unclear on the interaction of exercise and chemotherapy efficiency. What they've found, though, is it doesn't make it ineffective by any means. And if anything, the evidence is leaning towards that it actually helps you with completion of chemotherapy and then also just overall quality of life. And that's through a few studies in humans and in animals. And so the decision regarding when to initiate and how to maintain physical activity should be individualized to the patient's condition and personal preferences. So just like Gloria mentioned at the very beginning, I'm going to talk about diet in just a second, but if you're changing anything in your diet or your physical activity, just talk to your healthcare team. See, you know, if there's anything drastic that you're doing, obviously just double check with them. And then they can hopefully, if you have a registered dietitian that you're speaking to or an oncologist who's really familiar with food and exercise, they are able to individualize your needs based on your specific condition and also your personal preferences. Exercise during cancer treatment improves or has been shown to improve multiple post-treatment adverse effects on bone health, muscle strength, and other quality of life measures. So it's just, yeah, overall great for all of those things. And persons receiving chemotherapy and or radiation who are already on an exercise program, you may find that you have to, you know, minimize or lower the intensity or go for a shorter duration during their treatment. But please, please, please do not be discouraged. Just keep at it. And then when you're feeling able to, you can just slowly increase that back up to the recommended amounts. Some clinicians advise certain cancer survivors to wait to determine their extent of side effects with chemotherapy first. So again, always good to double check. And then for those who are sedentary before diagnosis, low intensity activities such as stretching and you know, slow walks could be adopted first and then slowly increased or slowly increasing the intensity and the frequency as well as the duration. And then for older individuals and those who have advanced bone cancer or osteoporosis, obviously you really need to be careful about balance. We don't want to break any bones. That's something else we don't need to add to the list. And so making sure that there's a presence of a caregiver or an exercise professional during exercise sessions could be helpful. And then do take in mind if your treatment or disease necessitates a period of bed rest, do that, and then just get back at it when you can and don't be discouraged. And at that point, a little bit of loss of lean body mass is to be kind of expected. However, with that said, it's also recommended if you're able to or you have access to it, having physical therapy during bed rest is strongly advised to help to maintain strength as well as range of motion, and can also help to further counteract fatigue as well as potential depression. Okay, so that's all the information about physical activity, which you may or may not have known. That wasn't something that was ever talked to you about with my mom or my dad, whereas protein was. So you may have heard if you're going through any sort of cancer treatment, your protein needs will increase. Again, your healthcare team will be able to give you specifics, but I'm going to give you a little bit of general information. So during cancer treatment, your protein needs increase. Currently, the protein recommendations for your average adult, so without disease, it is about 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. And this should account for approximately 10 to 35% of your overall daily calories. However, people who have cancer or other chronic diseases, their protein recommendations increase. Obviously, as I mentioned, we're double checking with your doctor, oncologist, or registered dietitian, particularly for older subjects. But the recommendations can be anywhere from 1 gram per kilogram of body weight per day of protein, sometimes upwards to 1.5 grams per kilogram per day or more of protein. So again, just double checking with your team is best. The 1 gram per kilogram per day is pretty easy. So if you're like a 60 kilogram man, you would need 60 grams of protein per day. That's if it's 1 gram. But if you're obviously increasing that, you do a little bit of quick math there and then kind of figure out exactly how much you require. Okay, and then types of protein. So what to eat. Now, for following the general guidelines for cancer nutrition, we want to focus as much as possible on plant-based foods. So things like fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, legumes, whole grains, and then good quality plant-based protein. And I'll talk about animal-based sources of protein as well. But first, I'll mention the plant-based protein. So when we're talking about good quality plant-based proteins, you can focus on the ones that do contain all 9 essential amino acids first. So things like tofu, edamame, tempeh, miso, buckwheat, quinoa, those all hemp seeds, chia seeds, nutritional yeast. Those are all contain all 9 essential amino acids that our body requires. And then you have things like legumes, so chickpeas, beans, black beans, pinto beans, kidney beans, lentils, like the list goes on and on. Nuts is another one, so things like walnuts, almonds, cashews, Brazil nuts, hazelnuts, those are all great sources. And then seeds. So I already mentioned chia and hemp, which are complete proteins, but pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds are also good. And then, of course, you have the nut and seed butters, too, that are great to include. I always like to mention tahini, which I'm going to be using in a recipe today. It's a good source of protein, healthy fats, as well as calcium. And then whole grains, which oftentimes don't get any air. Whole grains are also a good source of protein. I mentioned quinoa, which is actually a pseudo grain, buckwheat, again, complete protein, both of those. And then you have other good sources like, millet, wild rice, sorghum, telf, amaranth, depending on your background and culture. You could have, there's just so many different grains out there, and they are sources of protein. Okay, and then animal and fish-based proteins, so things like dairy or goat products, like cheese, milk, or yogurt. Fish, particularly those rich in omega-3 fatty acids, so things like salmon, sardines, mackerel, anchovies, are all good sources of those. And then I always get this question, and so I just want to address it straight on, because there's a lot of misinformation out there about the major findings of cancer in animal foods. And so the evidence that's out there currently, so as I mentioned, the guidelines for cancer nutrition, for guidelines from the major guidelines that are out there that are evidence-based, we're focusing mostly on plant-based, and that just looks like Canada's food guide as much as possible. Yes, I see Bree is asking. Yeah, this is all going to be in the handout. So you'll see all of this information will be provided to you. So we're really just focusing on like Canada's food guide as much as possible. So half your plate fruits and veg, a quarter of your plate whole grains. So all those wonderful whole grains I just mentioned, and then another quarter of your plate protein, most of which should be plants. But that's not to say that you shouldn't consume animal foods at all. The evidence that's out there in regards to major findings on cancer and animal-based foods, there's strong evidence that, number one, red meat increases the risk of colorectal cancer. Number two, processed meat increases the risk of colorectal cancer. And then number three, really highly salted, really anything, but the studies have done specifically on salted fish increases the risk of certain types of cancers as well. And then number four, due to its calcium content, dairy products have been shown to decrease the risk of colorectal cancer. So that's really all we know in terms of animal-based, specific animal-based products and cancer nutrition. I will mention, though, that dietary patterns have been extensively researched, and dietary patterns like the Mediterranean diet, vegetarian or heavily plant-based diets have been shown to not only help reduce the risk of cancer, but also help to prevent reoccurrence. So that's generally where we want to focus on, but that's not to say that you can't get your protein sources from animal foods. So if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to answer. And just a little quote from the World Cancer Research Fund online. So for people who eat meat, eat no more than moderate amounts of red meat, such as beef, pork, and lamb, and eat little, if any, processed meats. So that's a good kind of just general rule of thumb. Okay, and now how to eat your proteins. You can add them to, obviously, soups, stews, chilies, salads, curries, casseroles, your favorite breakfast item and dessert. And I have endless amounts of recipes and ideas for you, particularly when it comes to beans, because sometimes people are like, what do I do with these beans? And also I should mention, if you are new to beans, increasing them slowly is best, because it will help help your body get kind of used to them. Also too, if you're new to beans, rinsing them thoroughly, obviously, if they're pre-cooked, and if you're cooking them from scratch, making sure you're soaking them for, I'd say, at least 2 nights, changing out the water in between each night. I would even throw in a little bit of baking soda, both while they're soaking and while you're cooking them, and that helps to just break down those carbohydrates that sometimes can be a little harder to digest. Yeah, eating protein-rich foods at every meal and snack, particularly when undergoing treatment. And I'm going to show you a fun little snack recipe that we like at my house, or like in my house. And it's also kind of a treat too. It feels like a treat. I'll show it to you in just a minute. And then, of course, if you are doing any sort of exercise, so post-exercise, so within that that half hour to hour after you work out, is the best time to eat a protein-rich snack to help with the rebuilding and repairing of muscles. So get in that kind of golden hour after exercise, and that will help with rebuilding and repairing your muscles. Okay, so that's it for the fact component. That was really dense, and you will get that handout, so don't worry. Now we're on to the fun component, which is the practical application of everything I just mentioned. And I'm going to make 3 recipes for you today. One is kind of a liquid meal or shake. So for example, my dad right now has severe dysphagia due to esophageal cancer. And so he drinks something like this regularly. And so it's high protein. We're making sure we're getting as many different nutrients in there as possible. And we also obviously want it to taste good, right? You don't want to get sick of something. I know if anyone here has ever been suggested to drink Ensure, that's something that maybe tastes really delicious in the beginning, but then after a while it slowly starts to wear on you. So this is kind of a nice little break to that, and it gets some whole foods into you. So I'll show you how to do that, and then I'm going to show you how to make my creamy bechamel with fresh dill over whole grain pasta. So we're getting in a little bit of tofu and cashews and making kind of a plant-based cream sauce that's so yummy. This is one of my favorites, over a whole grain pasta. Again, another good source of protein. And then last but absolutely not least, and I use this as a dessert and a snack, are my chickpea blondies. And then it's really just chickpea based. It also happens to be gluten free. I mean, if you can't have gluten, this dessert's for you. And it's very high in protein. So and on top of that, I'm going to be drizzling a little bit of a chocolate tahini sauce. So we'll start with that so we can get that into the oven. But that recipe, so the chickpea blondie recipe, you'll be given the actual recipe in a Word document. That's also in the cookbook too. And then the liquid meal shake is on or in our free online resource, which you'll be given the link to after the fact. And then the creamy bechamel sauce, I will be giving also a link for that. That one's online and free from different work and different not-for-profit organization that I work for, but it's one of our favorites. So I'm going to share that with you today. Okay, with that said, I'm going to jump over to my kitchen cam and we're going to start with the chickpea blondies. So this recipe is so easy and is a great one to make ahead and then stick in your freezer. Again, really high in protein. If you do get the book, the nutritionals are found in the book. I think you'll also get the nutritionals too. It's in the recipe that we'll be sending you. But essentially, we're starting with chickpeas, a little bit of maple syrup. We're throwing in some flax seeds. The flax seeds help to bind the chickpeas so that they hold together. Hemp seeds, which we talked about, complete protein and also a good source of omega-3 fatty acids. A little bit of vanilla, some dark chocolate, very high in antioxidants. We've got some baking powder and baking soda, and then a little bit of salt. And we're just going to blend all of this up, put it in the pan, top it with the chocolate, and then we'll bake it in an oven at 375 for 15 minutes. Again, you'll be getting all of this, you'll be getting all the measurements, so you can just sit back and relax and enjoy. This is about a can of chickpeas. These are already cooked. So they're already cooked chickpeas. You're welcome to cook them from scratch if you want. I am not always great at planning ahead. So I usually keep canned legumes in my pantry, and you just make sure that you're rinsing them really well. Okay, and so that is about 2 cups, and then this is about a third a cup of maple syrup. You can use what you want. If you have honey, that's a good one too. Agave would work as well. I'm a Canadian girl, so I like to use maple syrup. This is about a tablespoon of ground flax seeds. So make sure that it's ground, otherwise it's not going to work. Flax is also has what we refer to as flavonoids or flavanols, and they're a good source of or good part of an anti-cancer diet as well. Okay, and then we're going to put in the hemp seeds. So hemp seeds was about 3 tablespoons, baking soda, baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of each. That guy in. I'm going to put a little bit of vanilla. One of my wonderful volunteers from Gilda's, every time she goes to Mexico, she brings me back vanilla. She's the best. Okay, so that's Ruth's vanilla from Mexico. And then I'm going to do a little pinch of salt. I usually use iodized salt just to get a little bit of iodine in my diet. And it's about, I think, an 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. Okay, I'm going to put in some of the chocolate so it gets blended up. And then I'm going to save some of it for the top. So I'm going to blend this up, scrape it down, and then we'll put it into this already pre-greased 8x8 pan. So I just greased it with coconut oil. You can use whatever you have on hand, whatever oil or fat you happen to have. I use coconut oil because it has a higher smoke point and I like the mouthfeel of it. So while I'm pureeing this, I'm going to put you on mute to spare you the loud sound. And maybe if Gloria has any announcements, she could do them.
Yes, I do. So, hello, welcome to Gloria's radio corner of this showcase. I wanted to let you all know about a memorial event that we have that will be on December 12th at 7 p.m. It is a virtual event. I'm popping in the registration link in the chat box right now. This has been an annual event that we've been doing for quite some time now at Gilda's Toronto. This is just an opportunity for us to honor and remember all of the people who have died in our lives, particularly in the last year, but we also invite you to put forth any names of people that you would like to recognize. When you register, there is an option to say yes or no if you have someone that you particularly or specifically want to honor. And if you click yes, we will be reaching out to you, asking for their name, maybe their birth and death dates if you want to share that information, as well as a photo if you would like to include that in the slides. So again, that's December 12th at 7 p.m. and I hope you can join us.
I'm still pureeing. So what I've done is I took the lid off and I scraped down. And then I started it back up again. So it should be ready in just a minute.
Put in a reminder so you can find the chat box and the Q&A at the bottom bar of your Zoom screen. Maybe press the three dots that say more if you can't see them.
Yay. Okay, there we have it. Have a look at this. You can see it's kind of like a cookie dough consistency. I've got some, you can see some little flecks in there of the chocolate. And now I'm just going to put it into the pan. So depending on the size or how big a piece you want, they make anywhere from 12, it makes 12 to 16 servings, like 12 kind of bigger ones, 16 small ones. You could freeze this too, just like this, if you wanted to. Or you can do it first and then freeze them. It is kind of a fun cookie dough too. Like you could bake these off as cookies. You obviously wouldn't bake them for the full 15 minutes. It'd be probably closer to like 7. You wanted to do them like cookies. I find this to be easier. You've made them? Yay, Teresa. Therese? I'm probably saying that wrong. Amazing. Love it. And if you've made them before too, maybe you know this, but you can also swap out the beans. So you could do this with black beans if you want. So I just kind of neatly put it into the bottom of the pan here. And then I'm going to sprinkle some more chocolate on top, and then we'll just pull out my handy dandy mini cut board here. Got a little bit of chocolate left. I'm just gonna chop it up a little bit fine, sprinkle it on. And then I've got some ingredients here for the chocolate tahini sauce that I'll show you how to assemble that. Put them on. And we're just gonna pop it into the oven for 15 minutes at 375. Okay, and now for the chocolate drizzle, which we'll make and then set aside. This is not in the recipe that you'll be getting, but it is so easy to make. All it is equal parts tahini to maple syrup to cocoa powder. That's it. You could throw in a little bit of vanilla if you want. I just might do that. Where did you go, vanilla? Somewhere. There you are. A little splash of vanilla. That was an impromptu. You don't have to add that in, but you can. Okay, and then you just whisk them all together. And if you need to, which this looks like it might need to, you can thin it out with a little bit of your milk of choice. So I might use some soy milk here. Got unsweetened soy milk. And in terms of protein, if we're doing any sort of milk alternatives, soy milk has the highest protein. So it's the same amount as cow's milk. So cow's milk and soy milk are both 8 grams of protein per 1 cup, which is a lot. So that's a great thing to, if you're trying to sneak in extra protein into your diet. There's some good examples. Okay, got a nice little drizzle here. So yummy. And then again, adds extra protein with the unsweetened soy milk and the tahini. Put that aside. And we're going to move on to the next recipe. So that was super easy, right? The next one, just as easy, is the liquid kind of meal replacement, or it's essentially a really protein dense smoothie, right? So I'm using raspberries. I've got some hazelnut butter. Our friend the hemp seed again, using those. And a banana for a little bit of sweetness, some fiber, some fresh mint. You could also at this point too throw in some spinach if you wanted to add additional leafy greens. Again, if you've ever done my nutrition showcases or ever attended my nutrition showcases before, you know how big of a fan I am of leafy greens. We want to get them in everywhere we possibly can. So spinach, I always say, is the least offensive of the greens when you're putting them in smoothies. So you really can't taste them. The mint, of course, you can taste, but it adds such a nice kind of oomph of flavor without added sugar, salt, or unhealthy fats. So, and then it's also leafy green, so it has all the antioxidants, fiber, and nutrients that leafy greens do. So that's that. And then I'll throw in some more vanilla. And my milk of choice, which is soy milk here. And then, if needed, I'm going to taste it. If needed, I'll put a little bit of maple syrup in. Okay. And honestly, it just all goes into the blender. You know how to make smoothies. Or if you've been with me for all the years I've been with Gilda, you know make a lot of. This is just kind of one variation of it. You're going to be getting the recipe, but I have altered it a little bit. I've added some raspberries and I'm using hazelnut butter instead of almond butter. The recipe that you're going to get also includes avocado, which is a great addition. I'm not putting it in here, but it is a great addition for healthy fats and to get those extra calories in there as well. It also has a really nice mouth feel too, which is great. Okay, so we'll pop everything into the blender. Raspberries. And I like adding frozen fruit so that it really does kind of taste like a milkshake, particularly when you add that vanilla in. Okay, hemp seeds. With about 3 tablespoons. This is about a quarter, well, half a cup of fresh mint. A little splash of vanilla. Thank you again, Ruth. And oh, 5 spoons. Okay. And then some hazelnut butter. So good. Oh my gosh. But yeah, almond butter is great. Peanut butter is great. Yeah. And if you have a nut allergy, you can use tahini here. You could use pumpkin seed butter. You could use sunflower seed butter. Gives again a nice little mouthfeel. Also ups the calories and the protein. Okay, we'll plop in our banana now. And our soy milk. Okay. And I'm just going to zhuzh this all up and then we will plate it. So I'm going to put myself on mute again. Talk amongst yourselves.
nothing more to advertise here, but as Therese said, that you've made these brownies before from the Long Table Cookbook. I'm curious if anybody else has also done any of our recipes, and if you want to share your faves, any tips and tricks that you found along the way, pop those in the chat box. Oh, awesome. Okay, Michelle says, one thing I've started doing is either cooking beans or opening a can of beans and freezing them. They're a great addition because the frozen bits make it thick and creamy and it's nut free for the kids. They have yet to notice the beans. Great.
Oh my gosh, what a great tip. I love that you put it in the smoothies. Was that the tip?
Sounds like yes.
Yeah, okay. That's amazing. I like to throw in, so awesome. Thank you for that. I like to throw in like cannellini beans into smoothies because exactly what you just said. It adds like a nice creaminess and mouthfeel, also increases the protein and the fiber. Yes, for smoothies. Amazing. Super mom over there. I love that. That's a great tip. Yeah, and then black bean brownies, the chickpea brownies, the kids love them and they don't even realize. I mean, it's still good to talk about it, and like, but they're maybe not going to eat it, then maybe they'll love it. I'm all about just getting it in. My two kids are pretty adventurous, but sometimes even then, they are like, "Mom, what did you put in this?" So there you have it. That's the smoothie. Yum! Got a little sprig of mint there. Gotta taste it. Yum! Yeah, and my banana was super ripe. So it's perfect in terms of sweetness, but obviously feel free to add a little bit of maple syrup or a date. You could even put a date in there if you have a high powered blender. Date also rich in all sorts of nutrients, but also high in fiber too. So set that guy now. I need this blender. So I'm going to for this for later. But yeah, there's so many ways to sneak legumes into things like soup, stews, beans, like dip. The desserts is like the one that people are like, really? Are you okay? All right. And then they try it and then tastes good. As long as the food tastes good. And that's my biggest passion in life is the practical application of cancer nutrition. Because we can talk till we're blue in the face about what's good for us and what we should be eating. But if you can't actually get it in your mouth, it's not going to make a lick of difference in terms of our overall health. So I hope you love these recipes. All right, I'm going to move on to the next recipe, which is the bechamel with cream over whole grain pasta with fresh. If there's any questions, maybe take them. Moving all my stuff over.
We've got two questions here. So one, what are your thoughts on unsweetened coconut milk?
So I like unsweetened coconut milk for fun, like to put in my like coffee or tea. I wouldn't use it as my sole base, my only go-to milk of choice. It's not very high in protein. In terms of nutritional benefits, I would say it's kind of like neutral. Yeah, there are better ones. Like I always say soy and unsweetened soy because it is a really good source of protein. It's a complete source of protein. Soy, aside from actually being a good component of anti-cancer diet, despite what some of the animal studies way back in the day said that have been since proven wrong. Soy is actually a great component of an anti-cancer diet. And then it's also good for heart health as well, helps to lower LDL cholesterol. Yeah, so that's, I mean, in terms of milks, that would be my milk of choice. But coconut's fun. I like using it in, as I said, coffees, teas, like fun drinks, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Thanks. Awesome. We've also got, what is your opinion on exercise snacking, adding all bits, so 5 minutes together to reach the exercise goals?
Is that question? Let me just pull that one up so I can make sure.
So it sounds like exercising in 5-minute little snacks.
Yep, I love it. I love it. I do it. I love it. I do it. If I don't have a lot of time in the mornings, I will do, I have one 8-minute workout that I love that gets the whole body. And it's like, it's intense, but it gets, if I don't have time to commit, to a longer, workout, it's absolutely better than nothing. And even in that case, there have been some studies that have shown that like it's, you know, especially if it's intense, that you continue to benefit at far after the exercise is complete. So I say yes, I say go for it.
Yeah, thank you. And last question here. What is a good substitute for cashews? They're in so many plant-based recipes, but I'm allergic.
Okay, well then do not put these cashews in the sauce. Forget about these. You can use raw sunflower seeds. That works. You could also use white beans here. So the cannellini beans I was mentioning would be a good substitute, but I would also add with the white beans, I'd add white beans plus some extra virgin olive oil. Because cashews are super fatty, beans are not. I would definitely add for this recipe overall, I would add about a quarter cup of extra virgin olive oil if you're using beans in lieu of cashews. Yeah. The white cannellini beans would be a good substitute, and or raw sunflower seeds, or a combo of both would be good too. Yeah, but just make sure that you're maybe adding that extra fat in there, because that's where the mouthfeel comes from, is the cashews. Okay, with that said, we're going to toss everything into the blender here. We're making a creamy bechamel sauce right now. So I have here some nutritional yeast. As I mentioned before, it's a complete protein, contains all 9 essential amino acids. It's also very high in B vitamins, so B12 in particular, which is important for supporting energy. And it's just like a fun, nutty, cheesy little powder that you can add, sprinkle on popcorn, put on pasta. You can get it at some, the bulk barn. You can get it in health food stores. I think most grocery stores now carry it. Oh yeah, they do, because I got it at Loblaws. So that's Bob Mills. I do like the ones that have the nutrition facts table on it, so you can actually tell what the breakdown is. You can even see, you guys can see that. See how many B vitamins are in there? You got the riboflavin, the niacin, B12, folate. So plop that in. So again, you're getting the measurements. That's about a quarter cup. This is about a cup and a half of cashews. And I'm gonna add some tofu, silken or soft is what is best in this recipe. So just putting that in there. Okay. Silken or soft is what's going to give it some good mouthfeel. I'm putting in 3 cloves, very big cloves of garlic, because I love garlic. You can do what you like. Maybe 2 would be, if you're not a big garlic fan, maybe just 1. But garlic, as you know, probably if you've ever attended these before, I talk about how important including things like garlic and onions, or those allium vegetables. They're a great component of an anti-cancer diet, really high in antioxidants. And they make everything taste really great. So plop that in, and then I'm going to pour in about 2 cups of, this is just pasta water. You could use veg stock. You could just use regular water, whatever you prefer. Okay, and then I've got a little bit of salt for seasoning. And that is a chickpea, so I'm going to take those out of the oven. Whoa, it's got a nice little facial. Check out my glasses there. If you can see them, they're all fogged up. There we go. Isn't that beautiful? Great. Okay, I'm going to set that aside here now. And I'm going to blend this guy up. While that's blending, I'm just going to heat up. Okay. Over medium-high heat. I'm going to blend this guy up. Put you on mute again for just a second.
All right, so Therese writes that you also make the rhubarb streusel that Annie presented about a year ago. So all of these delicious recipes can be found on the link if you scroll just a little bit up in the chat box to our nutrition resources page. There you can get 2 free brand spanking new resources that Amy created, as well as a link to the long table cookbook that Amy introduced in the beginning.
So you really don't want to skimp on the blending here. Want it to be nice, silky smooth and silky, very creamy. You can even soak your cashews ahead of time if you want in hot water for 15 minutes. That might help a little bit as well.
Oh, Amy, you're muted if you're talking.
I was talking. So this is silky smooth. You can see, yum, 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 yum. So this is still heating up here. While that's heating up, I'm just gonna chop some fresh dill. So again, those herbs, those fresh herbs, are essentially leafy greens, right? And if we're talking about foods to consume for an anti-cancer diet, we want to be focusing on leafy greens, the cruciferous vegetables, so broccoli, cauliflower, kale, arugula, the orange vegetables, you know what those are: carrots, squash, sweet potato, and then the red vegetables, so red onion, red cabbage, red pepper. We want to get those into us every day. Okay, got our fresh dill. It smells incredible. You have to make this recipe. It's so easy. This sauce also freezes, so you can make it ahead of time and then just thaw it and then heat it up. Okay, I think this is going to be good to go. Putting a little bit of sauce in. I'm not going to use it all right now. And then I've got some whole grain penne. Want to make sure that the pasta is nice and coated. That looks so good. Oh my gosh. You could use this sauce as a mac and cheese sauce as well if you want. So good. Nice and good. So I'm going to throw in some of the dill. Oh, so good. Okay, so burner off here. I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of lemon zest too. That just kind of gives it an oomph of flavor and just kind of a little bit of a freshness. Again, this isn't your first time. No one loves zest, and if you're using any juice of oranges, lemons, limes, always save the zest. You can freeze it and add it to soups, smoothies, stews, baked goods to give, again, an oomph of flavor without added salt, sugar, or unhealthy fats. Yeah, and you're just using the whole thing, the whole ingredient, right? There have been some studies that have shown too the oils that are found in citrus can be beneficial for breast cancer in particular. Obviously, more studies need to be done, but that's just kind of a fun fact. And again, it just tastes good. It adds a nice brightness to your food. You've never used a microflame before, I highly recommend grabbing one. I call this my flavor enhancer. You can use obviously zest with it, but garlic and ginger too, easily grated with it. And we'll plate it. Now for toppings, I just have some of the usual pasta suspects. I've got some sun-dried tomatoes, some olives, some artichokes, all that delicious sauce. You want to top with a little bit more dill, where you can get creative with plating. Sun-dried tomatoes. Tomatoes in general, full of, well, cooked, if it's cooked in particular, full of lycopene, the antioxidant that has been shown to help with reducing the risk of cancer. Oh my gosh, doesn't that look so good? You know I'm eating this after this. Okay, and then I'll sprinkle a little bit more. Ta-da! Oh my gosh, right? Doesn't that look amazing? Okay. Let's clean this up and we'll give you the final clean. While I'm doing that, are there any questions that I have missed?
We've got one question here. What are your thoughts on almond milk?
Almond milk, yeah. So again, I would say almond milk, similar to my thoughts on coconut milk, although almond milk does have vitamin E. Almonds are a good source of vitamin E, which is a vitamin, obviously, but it's also an antioxidant. With that said, 1 cup of almond milk, if we're talking protein, which is the topic of the day, 1 cup of almond milk is only has 1 gram of protein in comparison to 8 grams for soy. So but it's still fun. I use it again, like in baking sometimes, or yeah, in my coffee or tea. It's good to have a wide variety of different things. I'd say in particular, if we're talking about a plant-based diet specifically, but I wouldn't make it my main source of milk. That's my 2 cents. We've got our pasta, we've got our smoothie, we have our chickpeas here, which I'm gonna put still a little bit warm. So with the chickpea blondies, I highly recommend letting them cool for about half an hour. They come out a little bit, and we're gonna put on the drizzle, of course. We'll do that right now. You can see as the drizzle sat, it's kind of thickened a little bit. Be generous, obviously. And if you were plating this, say for like a nice, holiday dessert, you could use the sauce, obviously, to do that. Right? I might even add a little bit of sesame seeds on top just to make it extra. Chocolate, we have tahini, we've got protein in there, lots of it. Ta-da! And there you have it. 3 easy recipes that are rich in protein and are very, very tasty. So I hope you learned something or were inspired today. If there are any other questions, I can answer them now, but if not, just again, a big fat thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules for yourselves. And I'm always here to answer any questions or be of any support.
Got one question here just before we go.
Yeah.
What things are better to avoid in terms of weight gain? Throughout my treatment, I've struggled with gain rather than loss, and a lot of recipes don't include calories. I'm trying to figure out how to manage.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. So obviously, definitely reach out to your healthcare team. If you have a registered dietitian, even better. But my secret trick to like weight maintenance is high fiber. So things like legumes are really high in fiber. So I always say legumes fill you up without filling you out, so to speak. Things that make you feel satiated for longer. In terms of like actual nutritionals, if you're looking for those, I know all of the recipes that you'll be provided today and that are found in the cookbook, we have NFTs or nutrition facts tables for each one of the recipes. So that's good. You can check that out. The only one I don't have an NFT for is the dill, the cashew cream sauce, but it is very high in protein. Obviously, it is nutrient dense. So if you did want to, if you again were concerned about, it being too high in calories, you could balance it out with adding extra fiber. So adding things like leafy greens, you could wilt some spinach into it, adding more, of the artichokes. You could saute different veggies and put it into it. So then you're kind of like bulking up the fiber content in the dish. So that's basically it. It's just get those fiber numbers really high. It would be my recommendation. Yeah, but definitely consult with your healthcare team.
Thank you so much, Amy.
You're very welcome. Have a great rest of your day, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.